All right. Hello, everybody. I am Bryla McNees, dietitian with the UK Health and Wellness Program. I am also known as the Lazy Dietitian, which is our theme for today. So it's great to have everybody here with me. Thank you. Let me go ahead and just start sharing my screen here. Okay, there we go. And let me make sure I can see the chat box because I do want you to feel free to put any questions or comments you have as we go along here in the chat box, and I'm happy to address those. Okay, so today we are talking about ways that you can use frozen fruit that isn't in a smoothie. Okay. I know that's like the first and often only thing that comes to mind when people think about frozen fruit. I picked this topic at this time of year intentionally because this is the time of year I know for myself. I feel like a lot of my favorite fruits are going out of season. So a lot of the berries like blueberries, raspberries, strawberries, peaches, cherries. So a lot of things that are going out of season and I know are going to get harder. To get my hands on. They probably won't be as good and they probably will be more expensive when they're out of season because they have to get shipped from, farther distances where they still will grow in our off season and things like that. So I thought this was a great time to talk about frozen fruit because this can be something that you can rely on maybe a little bit more as we enter the fall and winter months. Okay. First, I do want to talk about some of the many benefits of frozen fruit, and then we'll get to the best part, which is a few recipes that we're going to walk through that use frozen fruit. These are things that I have tested in my own kitchen, so I can speak to them from personal experience, and I have fed them to other members of my family to make sure they think they taste good as well. Sometimes the dietitian's taste buds are a little different than other people. So yeah, that's really exciting. I'm excited to share these recipes with you to give you some ideas on how you can use frozen fruit. So one of the best benefits from a nutrition standpoint for frozen fruit is that it actually preserves nutrients. And this is the same for frozen vegetables as well. Any frozen produce is typically picked at its peak ripeness, and then it's flash frozen very quickly after that, which means it's locking the current nutrients in place until you go to use it and cook it. Okay. So all the vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, okay, are just kind of frozen in time for you until you use that product. This might mean that some frozen fruits and vegetables, again, it's very dependent on a lot of factors, but they have done some studies where they have found that some frozen fruits or vegetables may have actually more vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants than fresh ones, especially if the fresh fruits and vegetables have been grown and harvested in a faraway locale or country. Then they have to be on a truck or a boat and traveling to the United States. And then from there, it has to get to the grocery store and sit on the grocery store shelf. And all that time since that fruit or vegetable has been harvested, its nutrients are degrading, these vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants. So that's why, depending again on where your stuff comes from, how long it's been since it's been harvested, your fresh stuff might actually have less nutrients than frozen. This is why it's always a good idea too to try to shop for produce that's in season and local. That will always be your best bet for getting the best tasting stuff and probably the most nutrient dense stuff as well. Frozen fruit is generally minimally processed. I mean, there are some fruits that may have sugar added. I know, especially I've seen this for strawberries. They often sell sliced strawberries that are in some kind of like sugar thing. But for the most part, frozen fruit does not have anything added, sugar, salt, or other preservatives. It is just the fruit. Always check your labels to make sure, read the ingredient list. But this is a great, compared to a lot of other frozen things, there's nothing else added generally. It can be affordable. it can be cheaper than fresh fruit, especially if it's for out of season varieties, right? So this is where I'm talking about when we move into the fall months and it's harder to say get, good fresh berries and their prices will go up because they're going to be less readily available, then that's when you might see the cost savings kind of swing over to the frozen. Now you can get berries that are actually cheaper, perhaps in the winter months by buying frozen. And you can buy them in pretty big quantities, right? So if you have freezer space and you know you're going to use it, plus it keeps a long time, the bigger of a package you can buy, the more you're going to save that way as well. Like I just said, a long shelf life means you can keep things, these frozen fruits, in the freezer for months typically. It's ready to use, right? It's often been already washed or peeled or pitted or sliced, right? Frozen cherries have no pits, and peaches have already been sliced. You can also buy sliced banana frozen, sliced frozen strawberries. So this definitely can save a lot of prep time as well. Again, the year-round availability, I think, is a great advantage of frozen fruit. It also can reduce waste, okay, because there's no rush to eat it before it spoils. I know a lot of people feel like, they waste a lot of fresh fruit because they're just not eating it in time and then it goes bad. Now, I will make a note, a lot of past ripe fruit can be used still by putting it in the freezer. So your overripe bananas, maybe some overripe berries, freeze them still, and they make great additions to smoothies because it doesn't really matter if it's a little past ripe for something like that. Consistent quality, there's no guessing, right? If that fruit is ready to eat, is it ripe? I don't know. Frozen fruit is generally picked when it's at peak ripeness. It's an emergency backup, so sometimes maybe just fresh fruit isn't available depending on where you live or how close you are to a grocery store or limitations such as those. I also put this little note on here because I don't really have a recipe for it. You don't really need one, but just a note of one fun way to use frozen fruit is to add it to plain water. I know a lot of people struggle with drinking plain water. It's not that fun. I do recommend people could put just a little bit of, fruit juice in there, a splash of it to flavor it, but putting frozen fruit in there also is great. And after a few hours, it will definitely take on the flavor of whatever fruit you have in there and keep it cold at the same time. Okay. Any questions about any of this before I move on to the recipes? Okay. All right. Let's keep going. All right. Thanks, July. All right. Recipe one. Cherry cheesecake smoothie bowl. Now, I know I'm cheating a little bit here because I said this was, ways to use frozen fruit that aren't smoothies, but this is a smoothie bowl, so I'm going to say it's different enough. Honestly, you can put any smoothie in a bowl and put some toppings on it and call it a smoothie bowl, I suppose. I think smoothie bowl recipes are generally made to be a little bit thicker, maybe, than a traditional smoothie. But anyway, I'm cheating a little here. I also wanted an excuse to use cottage cheese because I know cottage cheese is all the rage now. We talked about protein in August. And cottage cheese is definitely making a comeback because of everybody's focus on cottage cheese. They're putting it in everything. So I thought, hey, this is a great way to show people another way to use cottage cheese. Cindy, yes, anyone who signs up for any of these live events will get a recap email the following day with the recorded video and the PDF. Okay, so this is pretty simple. Pitted frozen cherries, cottage cheese. Now you can use whatever milk fat you want. I happen to prefer the full fat, which is 4%, and that's what I used. And a little bit of sweetener. I used honey. You could use sugar, maple syrup, whatever you want. You just basically are blending it up and then putting some toppings on there. I used granola. I really happen to like the Kodiak protein granola. I just find it really tasty. So a little bit of that and some sliced almonds because almonds are a great companion to cherries generally, I think. A little note about the blending here. I got a little wordy with it because of my own experience in my kitchen with blending. I found it very difficult to add all the frozen fruit at once to my blender. My blender didn't like that. I guess maybe it's just not powerful enough. So I found it helpful to just add like a few cherries at a time, make sure it was blended up, and then add more until everything was well blended. Now, if you have like a Vitamix or a food processor or something really powerful, then maybe you don't need to do that. Another alternative is that you could defrost your cherries. Or any frozen fruit. This is going to apply to a few other recipes as well that you have to blend. But you can defrost the fruit overnight in the fridge so it softens up a little bit, and then you could probably add them all at once to your blender. But it seemed like I was asking too much of my blender to be able to dump all of this in here at once and expect it to blend. So there's a little pro tip from my experience. Okay, this was good. Um, I was not sure. I was like, cottage cheese and cherries. That's just, I don't know. It seemed a little weird. But it was like a good salty sweet kind of balance, right? I mean, you guys know cottage cheese is generally kind of salty. It does have a higher sodium content than say something like Greek yogurt. But that salty sweet, I like that combination. Like I love chocolate covered pretzels. So that's really what this flavor profile was. I did find also it was very enjoyable to add toppings for like some extra texture. The second bowl I had, I ended up adding a bunch of like other fresh fruit I had. I did have some strawberries and blueberries, and I added those on top with the granola and the almonds, and so that made it even more fun and again mixed up the taste a little bit. All right, any questions about this one? Okay. All right. Let's see. Strawberry soup. This seems kind of like a summary thing, right? I don't know, but hopefully you can still enjoy it year round. But I was very intrigued by this and wanted to make it. Apparently, it's inspired by Disney World. Maybe there's some Disney people who know that. Apparently, it's like a famous soup, like served at the Grand Floridian Resort in Disney World. But that's like the reference I kept seeing when I saw these strawberry soup recipes. Now, I will say I adapted this pretty heavily to be a little bit more health conscious. The original recipes generally have heavy cream and more sour cream than Greek yogurt. So I thought surely we could do half and half instead of cream, heavy cream, and do the plain Greek yogurt in place of sour cream. And it was delicious. I suppose it would be even richer if you use the original ingredients like sour cream, but I just don't see the need for that. This was delicious. Again, 2 tablespoons sweetener of your choice. You could try it without any sweetener added. I didn't, but it again, depending on your taste, you might find it sweet enough with no sweetener. Again, same precautions about blending it and what you might want to consider when you're blending your fruit up. This is obviously best served chilled. It's pretty good after a few hours when the flavors have had a little bit of time to kind of meld as well. Um, my 14-year-old son has been eating this up this week. And he doesn't even like to eat berries. He's just not a berry guy, and he's down in this stuff. So the 14-year-old boy approves. That must count for something, right? Any questions about this? Is it like a milkshake? Um, I suppose it is. It's like a lightened up milkshake, and you certainly could drink it from a cup if you wanted. It's a little thick. Um, but yeah, it could be like you could consider it a healthier milkshake. That I suppose is one way to say it. Although in defense of this recipe, I will say it's much less sweeter than what a traditional milkshake would be, in my opinion. Okay. But I think you could give it to a kid and say, here's a strawberry milkshake, and they'd probably love it. All right. Blueberry muffins. Let's see, a few notes about this recipe. It's using white whole wheat flour. If you are not familiar with white whole wheat flour, I recommend that you try it. It's different than regular whole wheat flour, which many people are familiar with. And if you've baked with regular whole wheat flour, you might have thought your product was maybe a little denser, a little drier, a little grainier tasting. White whole wheat flour is a way around that with similar nutrition benefits. So, white whole wheat flour is just a different type of wheat plant. It's a white wheat. And by not processing it, right, it stays in its whole wheat form. So it's white whole wheat flour. It's just softer in texture and lighter in color. So you're going to get a product that's much closer to if you used all-purpose flour compared to the regular whole wheat flour. Okay. So I do recommend that. It will increase fiber just like a whole wheat flour would as well. The substituted butter, I really like using butter in my recipes. So I did use butter. The original recipe suggested melted coconut oil or olive oil. I imagine any other oil like avocado oil or canola oil could work as well. Um, I used honey. Another recommendation in this recipe originally was maple syrup. Just depends on what flavor profile you want. Um, Here we are with the plain Greek yogurt. I happen to use 2% fat that time, but any percent fat would work. It's just giving it some extra moisture. That's what the Greek yogurt's doing, and it works really well for that purpose. And then the frozen blueberries are wild blueberries in this recipe, and wild blueberries are smaller than normal blueberries that are frozen. And the suggestion was that that works really well in a muffin recipe where you get a better distribution of the blueberries. You'll see in this recipe, you want to mix your blueberries with a little bit of flour, a teaspoon of flour before you put them in the mix, because that keeps the blueberries from sinking to the bottom. So yeah, a lot of good tips in here and things to try if you haven't, like the white whole wheat flour, um, and the wild blueberries, which I always just buy frozen blueberries. I never thought about the difference. And I was like, do they even sell wild blueberries at Walmart or Kroger? And they do. And yeah, I like the kind of smaller nature of it in these muffins. Okay, any questions about this one? Okay. All right. Oh, crisp. That's a great fall thing. Now I know in the fall maybe people are more apt to make apple crisp. Um, It's a little harder to find frozen apples. I used to be able to find them at a grocery store in town that no longer exists. And I haven't looked lately, but um, yeah, so maybe you could easily swap this out with sliced frozen apples if you happen to find them, or fresh ones for too. Yeah, I know. Doesn't this looks good? I'm a sucker for crisp. Um, but yeah, frozen sliced peaches. You got to mix your peaches with some cornstarch, lemon juice, and I did opt to add a little bit of sugar to them. I made this twice, and I thought the first time, oh, the peaches just need a little something. I added a little sugar to them, but that's optional. But the cornstarch is real important, especially with the frozen fruit, because as the fruit starts to melt while it's baking, you get a lot of liquid coming off of there, right? And the cornstarch will combine with that liquid and thicken it up. So it makes it kind of like this, like, kind of thick, kind of sweet peach juice that ends up in your crisp instead of being all watery. Old-fashioned rolled oats instead of instant oats, just to make a note of that, that tends to work better. And this is just the crumble topping you make to put on top. Yeah. My husband's been eating this for breakfast this week. I said, sure, it has whole grains, oats, and fruit in it. Go for it. All right. Any questions about this one? There are a lot, I will say, I made this one twice. I don't know if I mentioned that. I made a couple of these things twice because I wasn't happy with the first result. I made this one twice because, again, the first time I didn't add any sugar to the peaches, and I also used a different crumble topping that was like quote unquote healthier. And I was not a fan. Again, that's just me. I'm pretty picky about my crisp and the topping. So in the second try, I again opted to add a little sugar to the peaches and also used a more traditional topping that has butter and sugar in it. Um, okay, if you see that, yeah, good question, Rosie. The fourth ingredient listed there is 2 tablespoons of granulated sugar. That's what you'll put in the in with the peaches, and then you'll see the second from last is brown sugar, and that's what you'll put in the topping. Yeah. All right. Okay, mango lassi popsicles, kind of like the strawberry soup. This felt a little summery, but some people, I'm more of a seasonal eater. Some people don't care about that. So, but these were really fun. So diced mango, you got the plain Greek yogurt. I was alternating between 4% and 2% fat. And this is 2% fat. And then, yeah, some honey, ground cardamom. That might be something you don't keep around normally. I don't know. I do. I make a lot of like Indian type dishes that seem to often call for cardamom in their seasonings. It's kind of like a warmer kind of spice, like in there with like vanilla extract and cinnamon and nutmeg and things like that. Um, Lime juice, that's actually a really important part of this recipe. I think it gave it a great little like extra something. So I would not skip the lime juice or that pinch of salt. They really did add like a lot of flavor to these. I know, Liz. Yeah. So I was like, well, what do you do if you don't have popsicle molds, right? Because I don't have any popsicle molds. And then I saw this hack online where you could put the mixture into some Dixie cups. These are just like those little plastic, like, medicine cups or whatever. Um, and you just put the mixture in there. You fill it about 3/4 of the way up. I should have put that on here because you need room for expansion when it freezes. So about 3/4 full of the little Dixie cups. Um, One recommendation I read was like if you're worried about your popsicle sticks like not sticking up straight in there or falling over, you could put some like foil, little pieces of foil or press and seal over the tops of the cups and then stick the popsicle stick in there. So that's what I did. I did it with foil. I had to make a little slit in it though, because the popsicle stick wouldn't quite grow through. I guess I had pretty heavy duty foil. But yeah, either way, you put that little, cover on there and then it keeps the stick straight and nice. And then you put them in the freezer for a few hours till they're frozen. And then you just kind of like, manipulate the cup when you take it out of the freezer, just like handle it and squeeze it for a few seconds, loosen it up, and then it comes right out into this cute little popsicle. All right. Oh, Cherish, you have the cardamom? Yeah. I think a lot of times it's in chai, right? Like chai tea, chai latte, things like that too. Yeah, it's a great spice. The original recipe of this called for 3/4 teaspoon. Me and my son loved it that way, but my daughter and my husband thought it was too strong, in terms of the cardamom. So I'm suggesting here, maybe if you're not familiar with cardamom, don't know how much you like it, I scaled it back to a half teaspoon. Okay, let's see. We got our last recipe here. Chia seed fruit compote. This is something I make on a very regular basis. I love getting just a bag of like frozen mixed fruit. It usually has strawberries, cherries, blueberries, raspberries. Um, but you could use anything, but I really only have experience with the berries doing this. And then 2 tablespoons of chia seeds. I know, right? It's like snack time, right? 3 o'clock or so. That's snack time for most people. You guys are probably hungry, so these probably pictures look like extra appetizing. Chia seeds are just a great way to add some healthy fats to your diet, some fiber. The really special thing about chia seeds, though, is they are what's called hydrophilic. That means that they like to absorb liquid. Okay. And that's the beauty of this. That's what makes it into a jam without having to mess with any kind of like cornstarch or any thickener. All right. So, and again, you get the bonus of the nutrition of the chia seeds. I usually make this on the stovetop. I find that just to be just as quick and easy to do than like trying to defrost it in the microwave. But you can do either way. But I usually do it on a saucepan, medium heat. You just start melting the fruit. Once it's melted, you just mash it up. I have a potato masher I use, whatever you have that will mash it up until it's mostly broken down, depending on how chunky you want it. And then you take it off the stove, stir in the chia seeds, let the mixture sit in the fridge for a few hours, and that's where the magic's going to happen, where those seeds are going to um, absorb the liquid and turn into like a really thick kind of jam. It's so good. Sometimes I just eat it plain right out of the container. A lot of times I put it in my yogurt. It's almost like that fruit on the bottom kind of consistency when you buy yogurt that way. It's like that. You could put it like use it like jam or something on like toast or a PBJ. But yeah, this is super, super fun. A lot of people do chia seed pudding if you're interested in, again, if you buy some chia seeds and you want more ways to use them, chia seed pudding is another thing you might want to Google. It's typically like chia seeds mixed with some kind of like milk, and maybe like a sweetener and other spices, and it just turns into like literally a pudding. It makes the milk turn into a pudding, with again whatever other flavors you have in there. Okay, so those are all my recipes for you. Now, these are all just suggestions, right? These are very particular recipes using particular fruits and flavor profiles. But if any of these concepts appeal to you, certainly Google, the concept of just chia seed fruit compote. You'll see other ones. You can find other just Google, frozen fruit popsicles. You'll find all other kinds of ways to make popsicles from frozen fruit. Of course, different muffins and crisps. I'm sure there's other there's other fruits, soups out there as well. So you can hopefully take these concepts and make them into whatever you want them to be. Any other questions, thoughts for today? Okay. Well, once again, I really appreciate all of you being here today. Thank you for taking time out of your busy days. Yes, Liz, everybody, tomorrow I'll send a recap email out that has this recording as well as this PDF with all the recipes. Okay. All right. Thanks, guys. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.